All right, guys, as you know, I have reviewed several e-bikes over this last year, and one of my favorite companies is Ride1Up, and I've got to say, they made an announcement the other day that literally when I scrolled by it on Instagram, my jaw dropped. They announced their brand new CF Racer1 road bike and gravel bike, and these things are full carbon bikes that come in at an astonishing price. Let's go over all the specs and details and figure out if this bike is actually legit or if it's an overpriced road bike or gravel bike. So the first thing that I noticed whenever I looked at the CF Racer1 is it just looks like a standard road bike or gravel bike. Looking at this from the side, you would have no idea that this was an e-bike. Like, this is as stealth as you can possibly get when it comes to one of these style of bikes. Now, they do offer it in two different colors, but me personally, I love the clouded gray color that they have, but they also have a rainbow black gloss. Now, I got kind of curious and I wanted to know what the differences were between the road and the gravel bike. But first, let's talk about the sizing on this. This does come in two different sizes, no matter which one you get. You can either pick from a 50 centimeter or a 56 centimeter. These are standard road bike, gravel bike sizing metrics. So you're gonna wanna make sure you get the one that fits you perfectly. Me personally, at 5'11", I would fit well on a 56 centimeter. Now, I'm gonna lean more towards the gravel bike on this. I love road biking also, but gravel biking is where it's at for me. So I would lean more towards the gravel bike on this particular one. Now, oddly enough, this is a class 3 bike. It can hit upwards of 28 miles an hour with the motor and battery setup that's on the bike. I don't see anywhere in any of the images online that it has a throttle. So it may just be a pedal assist only class 3, which in my mind is the proper way to design a bike like this. Now, this is a class 3, so generally when I see class 3 bikes, I expect it to have a really big motor like 500 or 750 watts, but that's not the case. This has a 250 watt sustained gear hub motor. So the motor is going to be in the rear wheel, which some people would say isn't the best setup for a modern higher end bike. But honestly, I've seen a lot of road bikes and gravel bikes that are e-bikes that they do use a rear hub motor. Now, this motor isn't weak at all. At 250 watts, you are gonna get 42 Newton meters of torque. I have seen 750 watt motors that I've reviewed that only have 60 Newton meters of torque. So to have one that's only 250 watts, put out 42 Newton meters of torque, I think that this bike is going to be a hill climbing machine. Now, this motor is a 36 volt setup and the battery is integrated into the frame. Now, as far as range on this bike, they are claiming 16 to 40 miles. This has a very small 7 amp hour battery in it. I think that a 7 amp hour battery is probably the exact size they should have gone with. Now, the road bike comes in at 27.4 pounds and the gravel bike is going to come in at 28.6 pounds. These things are insanely light bikes. So light that I bet on flat ground, you could ride these bikes and they feel like a normal bike. So whenever you get to a hill or a slight uphill grade, you could then turn on the pedal assist and get a little bit of a boost. But then you could shut it off and on, all depending on where you're riding and how you're riding to get a little bit extra mileage out of your ride. Now, this is a full carbon frame. It has a carbon stem, carbon handlebars from what it looks like, and a carbon rigid fork. That's what's making this bike super lightweight, and it should be really responsive. Now, there are only a few differences between the gravel bike and the road bike. The two frames, basically the only differences between them are the max seat height, the minimum seat height, the standover height, the total length, and the handlebar height. Now, the handlebars on this are going to be a little bit different. With the gravel bike, you're gonna get a 15-degree flare, but on the road bike, you're only gonna get a 3-degree flare. I personally love flared bars. I think that they're a little bit more comfortable. Even if I had the road bike version, I would probably want the 15-degree flare. It'd be really cool if they offered either one, that you could pick and choose which bar you wanted. But if you get the road bike, you get the basically 3-degree flare, and if you get the gravel bike, you get the 15-degree flare. Now, going back to the actual powertrain on this, one thing I wanted to mention, this does have a sine wave controller, which gives a smooth curve to your acceleration. It's not going to be real jumpy like you can feel on some other bikes. Some other bikes are using a square wave controller, which is basically an on or an off. With the sine wave, it's going to be a nice, smooth, gradual curve. That way you can really feel more natural on the bike, and I'm glad that they went with that sine wave controller. Now, right in the middle, in the front of the handlebars, they mounted the VeloFox DM02 color display, and it looks just like you would expect on a road bike computer system. I love the fact that they took the time to mount this out front on the bars instead of just attaching it to the bars. So one thing I really did like to see, even though we are using a rear hub motor, the rear axle is going to be threaded. The front axle is actually going to be a through axle, making the front end a little bit more stiff and responsive. So I really do appreciate that they didn't just use a standard quick release or a bolt on. They actually used a through axle in this case. Now, one thing I do find interesting, and I really hope to get to review this bike, is the fact that they used a cadence sensor instead of a torque sensor. Now, I'm kind of wondering if with the sine wave controller that it's going to feel more like a torque sensor, but they did use a cadence sensor, which generally has an on and off feel. They claim that it's a sensitive cadence sensor. I've never heard those words used when it comes to a cadence sensor, so I have a little bit of a feeling that this is going to be something a little bit different than what we've experienced in cadence sensors in the past. Now, another difference between the road bike and the gravel bike are the tires, and that's one of the big distinct differences between road bikes and gravel bikes in general. The road bikes are going to come with the Schwalbe E1. They're going to be 700 by 32C, and then the gravel bike version comes with some Continental 700 by 40C, so they are going to be quite a bit wider. Now, the question that I have for this bike is, can I actually put wider tires than 40C tires? I personally ride 44C on my current gravel bike, and I really like that tire size. Now, 40C is a very wide tire in general and is perfect and really common on a lot of gravel bikes, but I would love to see if you could actually fit a even wider tire on this bike. Now, the drivetrain is actually pretty surprising. They went with a SRAM rival setup. Now, this is a 1x11 setup, and I love the fact that they actually did this. They went with a name brand that we don't see a lot on e-bikes these days. I like SRAM products. I like the rival line. It's a high quality line that has basically the double tap shifters that SRAM came out with. And this has a 42 tooth chain ring up front. The rear cassette is an 11 to 42 tooth. Now, the rims are double walled, which is nice, so you don't have to worry about your rims going out of true, especially if you're going to be using this for gravel biking. I will be curious to see if anybody tries to make these tubeless. It might be possible, but it might not be possible. We'll just have to see as people start reviewing this and starting to test the product. Now, interesting enough, they have the stem, the fork, the frame, and the bars that are carbon. They also are including a 27.2 carbon seat post. And with all this carbon on this bike, the price is absolutely mind-blowing that they could come in at a price point that they did. Full retail on this bike is $2,295 for a full carbon road bike or gravel bike. And if you pre-order this, you can get it for basically $100 off at $21.95. They are supposed to be shipping out in late January. I cannot wait to see what these bikes are all about. I really hope I get the opportunity to get a hold of one of these bikes, check it out, review it, and even just to see one in person would be absolutely awesome, because I think this bike has a lot of potential. Now, one last thing, this bike is rated at IPX65, so it's not waterproof, but it's water resistant. And essentially they just tell you, don't leave this out in the rain. I don't think it's gonna hurt if you ride in the rain. So I think I pretty much covered everything that I know about the CF Racer1 by Ride1Up. I am super excited to see this come on the market. This bike has a ton of potential. If you guys are interested in checking this bike out, use my links down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Check out my playlist at the end of this video because there might be an e-bike in there that you like even more. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one. All right, if you guys are still watching, you are super dedicated and I really appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed, you might as well click that subscribe button because it's completely free. And also, if you want to become a member to support this channel, go over to my members tab on my YouTube page, and you'll see over there are 5 different levels to choose from, all the way down to 99 cents a month. So when you become a member, there are a couple different benefits that you get. One is pre-released videos before anybody else sees them, and during that period before they go public, they will be ad-free. Not only that, if you join and you want an official Run Bike Mike sticker, I'll happily mail you one. So if you want to support the channel even more and get some benefits out of it, jump over to my members tab and become a member. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.